Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I'm your host for today and every other day, the Articulate Thinker. Hopefully, here to bring you art, articles, and articulation straight from Articulation Station, where I'll be assessing the situation. So be sure to like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. Don't forget to turn on those bell notifications while you're at it. And if you don't like this bell, I have another bell, a backup bell, which is just swell, except for the fact that although it is happy on the outside, it is broken on the inside. Happy on the outside, broken on the inside. The story of someone's life. If that someone is you, well, stick around and find out that you will make it through. Let's do this together. Or something like that. All right. Before I go on and get into this, let me also say that this is basically a follow-up on my previous show, which I recorded and uploaded yesterday in regards to the latest plot twist in the presidential race on the eve of the Iowa caucuses. That's right. Some drama between Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, which rhymes with cake, but also with snake. Think of that what you may. And what can I say? Well, long story short. Over the weekend, Vivek Ramaswamy posed for a picture with some young lads who happened to be wearing t-shirts. And on those t-shirts were photos of Donald Trump, as you can see on the screen. Above the photo of Donald Trump, the words "Save Trump." Below the photo of Donald Trump, the words "Vote Vivek." So, save Trump, vote Vivek. That was the message. Well, Donald Trump did not like that message too much. And he posted shortly after on his Truth Social account, as he often does, a very, very critical post about Vivek Ramaswamy, saying that he is not MAGA. Did you hear that? Despite all of Vivek Ramaswamy's kissing up to the MAGA movement, and Donald Trump specifically, Donald Trump has thrown him under the bus, for lack of a more original expression. He has, well, thrown him under the bus, yes, he has. So, did Vivek Ramaswamy throw Donald Trump under the bus? No, he did not. At least not intentionally. Now, I don't want to go around and round on this too much. I want to break this down to the best of my ability. I'll do my best, and you can do the rest. And then we will move on with our lives. But we'll see. Only time will tell whether or not this will harm Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign. I would say that it might harm him more in the long run than in the short run, because he has some momentum right now. The problem is, it's not going to get him anywhere. It just isn't. Because he's running as a backup plan for Donald Trump. And the problem for him is that Donald Trump is still in the race. So Donald Trump is going to get most of the votes on that one, on that agenda. Because he is the one who has the unyielding support of MAGA, the MAGA movement, which is somewhat unmovable at times, at many times. But in the future, after this has ended, it may permanently end for Vivek Ramaswamy, because he won't be able to draft behind or grift off of Donald Trump. And he will be known as the one who ran as the replacement for Donald Trump. That is a bit of a prediction. I could be entirely wrong about that. Maybe it is true that Vivek Ramaswamy has more momentum than I give him credit for. And he will carry it through. If not into a presidency this time around, well, maybe the next time around. Assuming he runs again in the future. Either in the near or far future. I'm just saying, if you are clinging onto the coattails of a movement which then turns around and expels you on the basis of you exposing yourself, well, what's your base going to be in the future? What's your base going to be going forward? If your base now is supposedly the coattails of the MAGA movement, and then the MAGA movement does away with you, throws you under the bus or to the wolves, well, what's your base going to be? That's what I would like to see. That's what I would like to know. But here we go. And if you want more context, if you want my initial thoughts to what happened, go back and watch my previous show. Watch or listen. Pick your poison. I'm going to skip past some of that and get on with this. I'll pull this thread back up, which I have compiled on my X account. As you can see here, a lot of words, hopefully of wisdom. Fingers crossed. But yes, those are my words, and this is the basic rundown of what happened. Originally, Donald Trump had said, "We like Ramaswamy." You know why? Because he likes Trump. And of course, the script was flipped on that one once Donald Trump saw that Vivek Ramaswamy's agenda was getting people to vote for himself in order to supposedly save Trump. So yeah, Donald Trump said Vivek started his campaign as a great supporter, the best president in generations, etc. Unfortunately, now all he does is disguise his support in the form of deceitful campaign tricks. A word which I cannot see because it is covered up by this arrow here. Something sly. But a vote for Vivek is a vote for the other side. Don't get duped by this. Vote for Trump. Don't waste your vote. Vivek is not MAGA. Expelled indeed. The Biden indictments against his political opponent will never be allowed in this country. They are already beginning to fall. MAGA. So, some interesting scenarios within this scenario lead to Trump saying not only that the previous election was stolen from him, but that this upcoming election will definitely not be stolen from him. And as Vivek Ramaswamy continues to run with the narrative that, Donald Trump will indeed be eliminated in one form or fashion from this particular race, Donald Trump is now pushing back against that, saying, "No, I won't be. All of these indictments are falling. They are failing. And I will be the winner, despite previously being the loser, for one reason or another." So very interesting scenario, very interesting dynamic between the two of them. And because I covered this much in my previous show, as I already mentioned, let me speed read on here. Vivek Ramaswamy, though he initially posted a somewhat indirect response to Donald Trump's lambasting and blasting of him, well, he later had this to say on his X account. He said, "Yes, I saw President Trump's Truth Social post. It's an unfortunate move by his campaign advisors. I don't think friendly fire is helpful. Donald Trump was the greatest president of the 21st century, and I'm not going to criticize him in response to this late attack. I've met tens of thousands of Iowans across 390 plus events here, and they are deeply worried. And so am I, that this system won't allow Donald Trump anywhere near the White House again. It seems they will stop at nothing to keep him away from power." I don't necessarily disagree with that. But of course, at this point, Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy are at opposing positions, considering Vivek Ramaswamy is saying he will be eliminated, and Donald Trump is saying, "I will not be eliminated, so Vivek is a snake." But yes, Vivek continues. "I'm worried for Trump. I'm worried for our country. I've stood up against the persecutions against Trump, and I've defended him at every step. I showed up at the Miami courthouse in solidarity following his first federal indictment. I filed a FOIA demand to the Biden DOJ. I submitted an amicus brief this week with the U.S. Supreme Court calling on them to overturn Colorado's ruling. I pledged to remove myself from Maine's and Colorado's primary ballots if they remove Trump, calling on DeSantis and Haley to do the same." Now, I imagine if Vivek Ramaswamy were not campaigning on the back of Donald Trump's movement, and therefore attempting to accrue the votes of Donald Trump once Donald Trump hypothetically is eliminated from the race, he would never have felt the need to file a FOIA demand or go to the court system in any way in regards to the attempt to remove Donald Trump from the ballots, which is going to fail because the Supreme Court is going to shoot it down. I mean, there is already a stay within those rulings by the Colorado and Maine Supreme Courts, which basically allows for Trump to be left on the ballots, just based upon the fact that the rulings are going to be appealed, and the Supreme Court is not going to rule that he should be taken off of the ballots. But that's a whole different legal discussion there, a more in-depth legal discussion, which I'm not going to get into. My point is, it seems to me that Vivek Ramaswamy is basically virtue signaling on this. He gets to say, look at me, I am doing what needs to be done. I'm doing what none of the other candidates will do in support of Donald Trump, in order to keep him on the ballot, though he will ultimately be eliminated from the race, and at that point, I will take all of his voters. Thank you very much. So it seems very sly, very slippery, as most snakes do. But I'll leave that one up to you. He did what he had to do in order to claim that the other candidates, such as DeSantis and Haley, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, should be more like him. Since he doesn't have much of a record to run on, he gets to craft his rhetoric in a way which is most beneficial to him, and then say, hey, everyone should be more like me, even though I haven't actually done anything aside from what I've done in this race. Interesting how he has gone from a nobody in politics to that one person whom everyone is supposed to be like, according to him. But yes, Vivek Ramaswamy continued in his post here. We have to open our eyes. Last time it was a man-made pandemic and a big tech election interference. Now the same billionaires funding the lawsuits against Trump are the ones trying to prop up Nikki Haley. The same MSM blasting Trump is lavishing praise on Nikki. They want to narrow this to a two-horse race between Trump and Haley, eliminate Trump one way or the other, and trot their puppet into the White House. We can't fall for that trap. 1 year from now, we won't look back and say we were shocked that it happened. We'll kick ourselves for not stopping it. Stopping it by voting for Vivek in order to save Trump. Or something like that. Our movement must live on. Must live on. America First didn't start in 2016. It started in 1776. We owe it to our founding fathers to do the right thing for our country. I want to save Trump and to save this country. Let's do it together. You won't hear any friendly fire from me. Okay, but Trump's argument would be that this photo, which you still see on the screen, is actually friendly fire. So, interesting choice of words from Vivek Ramaswamy. And my takeaway from this is this. A quote from the beginning of Vivek Ramaswamy's post. It's an unfortunate move by his campaign advisors. Let me go back and read that portion of his post one more time. He said, yes, I saw President Trump's Truth Social post. It's an unfortunate move by his campaign advisors. I don't think friendly fire is helpful. All right. So that's interesting because what Vivek is unintentionally suggesting in his desperate defense is that Trump is just another puppet who doesn't even decide what to post on his own platform. Shots fired. Somewhat indirectly, but shots fired nevertheless. I imagine the defenses are only going to get more desperate as time goes by, and at some point, Vivek will likely shift his position on Trump yet again. And if you don't believe me, if you don't see where he has been shifting his position, well, stick around and you'll find that one out as well. Because my thread goes on here. But yes, emphasizing this point about Vivek Ramaswamy saying, I don't think friendly fire is helpful, while simultaneously taking shots, not just Donald Trump in this case, even if unintentionally. He has been taking shots at pretty much everyone every relevant Republican he's been taking shots at while claiming that he's not a shot taker. So he got into the race under the premise of him being a peacemaker. Then he got on the debate stage and he was like, "You're all big PAC or super PAC puppets. Yeah, super PAC puppets. You're all bought and paid for super PAC puppets." Big PAC works as well, I guess. And then he was still trying to maintain his status as a unifying peacemaker. Good luck with that. But, yeah, that's a quote from Vivek Ramaswamy. "I don't think friendly fire is helpful." Well, you have passed the point of no return on this because you have stepped on Donald Trump's toes, and he is no longer willing to dance with you. He is no longer willing to do the dance. He has put you in your place. It may not be last place, considering how long Donald Trump has been attempting to put the other candidates in their place, but you're definitely not going to end up in first place. Vivek, the narrative is already in place for Team Trump. How convenient. In addition to predictable responses or a predictable response to such a cringe campaign occurrence, Vivek should have been aware of the fact that Team Trump will turn on anyone at any moment for any reason. The fact that Vivek has given Trump even this much of a reason to throw him under the big orange bus only decreases the effectiveness of any defense which Vivek might decide to make. Vivek's new double negative is that he sounds desperate if he defends himself, and even more desperate if he continues to defend Trump. Because now Trump has given him a reason not to defend him. Just as Trump has given everyone a reason not to defend him, pretty much everyone a reason not to defend him, by throwing them all under the bus. But yes, if Vivek Ramaswamy defends himself on this, bad luck for him, because he's supposed to be that pro-Trump candidate. And at the same time, if he continues to defend Trump, considering what you see on the screen here, there are a lot of people who just aren't buying it. A lot of people in Trump's base who just aren't buying it. Not anymore. Ramaswamy and Trump have managed to feed the media narrative machine, which in this case is accurate, on the edge of the Iowa caucuses. And although the public, or the publicity, may once again help Trump, it will likely only hurt Ramaswamy. Because for Trump, even bad publicity is good publicity, because it's publicity. And that's what makes his world go round. It may be a live by the sword, die by the sword sort of scenario, but there's a lot of live in there. And in Vivek Ramaswamy's case, not so much, because he doesn't have that base behind him. And if he appears to, it's only because he has appeared to be backing the base. In other words, backing Donald Trump himself. And you can see in the headline of this New York Times article, which I'm not going to pull up because I did that in my previous show. Trump turns on Ramaswamy just days before the Iowa caucuses. Moving on. And to think, this was Ramaswamy's position as it relates to Donald Trump shortly before he announced his run for presidency. Granted, this is an article from CNN, but Ramaswamy has given the media more to work with than his recent interactions with them would have you believe. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy is good at responding to media and to media narratives. Good for him on that one. Takes some skill, and he has a lot of skill. He is a very intelligent individual. But regardless of what those interactions with the media might suggest, he has indeed given the media more to work with than one might imagine. Here's an example of that. Him seemingly exposing himself over the course of time. He, as in Vivek Ramaswamy, prominently included Trump in a section of the book titled Sore Losers. This may be old news, but it's news nonetheless. He rejected Trump's election fraud claims as weak. He outlined how thoroughly these claims had been rejected by various authorities, including Trump-appointed judges. He argued of Trump that what he delivered in the end was just another tale of grievance. A persecution complex that swallowed much of the Republican Party whole. So he went from saying that Donald Trump had a persecution complex to saying, well, he was just persecuted. He was just being persecuted. Still is. Bit of a flip of the script on that one. He mocked how Trump had floated the idea that the 2022 Republican Senate primary in Pennsylvania was also rigged, writing sarcastically that apparently even Republican primaries across space and time are specifically rigged against Trump and his endorsed candidates. He wrote that what does threaten democracy is for political parties and their candidates to deny the legitimacy of elections, which he himself is now doing. Go figure. And he wrote, "It was a dark day for democracy. The loser of the last election refused to concede the race, claimed the election was stolen, raised hundreds of millions of dollars from loyal supporters, and is considering running for executive office again." I'm referring, of course, to Donald Trump. I also find it interesting that while one of Vivek Ramaswamy's favorite talking points is that he is spending his own money on himself, and therefore he must not be bought and paid for, as opposed to the other candidates, he never, at least anymore, talks about how Donald Trump was raising hundreds of millions of dollars from his loyal supporters, and even dealing with all of these legal matters, which requires an awful lot of money. Yeah, he never talks about that anymore. He did back then, including in his books, which he has been using as a form of record. He likes to reference his books as though they equate to a record. I said this in my book. Well, you know what else he said in his book? He said that Donald Trump was a sore loser. He won't say that anymore. So I'm just saying, Vivek Ramaswamy has been exposing himself since day one, if you ask me. Not that you did. But considering how much he has been talking to the media, how much he has been campaigning as of late, how much content he has given everyone to digest, I can see how people might look over what he said a couple of years ago. And he is a hard worker. I give him that. He has been campaigning like crazy. Of course, that's what he has to do in order to even attempt to make it through. Since, once again, he doesn't have a record. All he has is rhetoric. He needs publicity for that much. But anyways, I said here, he has essentially gone from suggesting that Trump was a sore loser who didn't deserve to be president to claiming that the 2020 election was rigged via social media suppression, to claiming that the 2020 election was stolen via inside job, to claiming that he will jump through any and all legal hoops to defend Trump in his campaign, to arguing that Trump will be eliminated from contention, whatever that means, regardless, to encouraging voters to vote for himself in order to save Trump. So that's Vivek's campaign in a nutshell, like it or not. It's like one big self-fulfilling gift, or wait a minute, grift, which just isn't going to pay off in the end. And I must say, it always rubbed me the wrong way how Ramaswamy went from being a hypothetical peacemaker to a literal shot taker, who more suspiciously went out of his way to take shots at nearly every relevant Republican while simultaneously simping for all things Trump, as though there isn't a ton of low-hanging fruit there to pick at, to say the least. I'm not saying that Vivek Ramaswamy isn't at all sincere, but he seemingly has the ability to become sincere in whatever way strategically benefits him at the time. Keep in mind that he went from nowhere to now here, politically speaking. However, such strategy can only go so far when someone like Donald Trump is at the top of the leaderboard, at the top of the ticket, in other words, according to the polls, anyways. And this screenshot, which I already read from, is taken from a CNN article. I need to pull that up. It's CNN, but hey. Someone has to point this stuff out. about how Vivek Ramaswamy went from claiming that Donald Trump was a sore loser to claiming that actually he won. And also, though he is the rightful winner or something like that, he's going to be eliminated, and therefore you must vote for me. That is Vivek Ramaswamy's current campaign strategy. So, there's this as well, more evidence of his script flipping, his table turning. Keep in mind that Vivek Ramaswamy went from claiming that he cried on J6 because of how disgraceful it was to trying to rebrand it as Entrapment Day. I'll pull up a video of that in a moment. Of course, if he actually admits to flip-flopping, he'll reference some new evidence and say that his change of tune makes him all the more reliable. And although I can respect the ability to adopt and adapt to new positions according to new evidence, I just don't trust a guy who's unintentionally suggesting that he was entirely ignorant on the issue just 3 years ago and just so happened to become enlightened in such an overcompensating way right when it became necessary for him to do so in order to stand out among the other Republican candidates. Coincidence or convenience? So here's a screenshot of Vivek back in 2021 saying, "What Trump did last week was wrong, downright abhorrent. Plain and simple. I've said it before, and I did so in my piece." Later on, as of the 6th of this year, Vivek Ramaswamy posted simply, "Happy Entrapment Day." A bit of overcompensation going on there. If it was a simple, subtle change, might not be quite so suspicious. But when someone just changes the tune in such a dramatic way, man, what can I say? Here's another example of that.
This might be controversial to say, but I think that when I saw the disgrace that unfolded at the footsteps of the Capitol on January 6th, I cried. I was in tears when I watched on television that day.
Later, in the void.
Government Entrapment Day. That's how this should go down in history. That's why I named it that at the start of today.
And you can ignore all that static sound. I just put the aforementioned screenshots there in the video. The video, which is on my X account, but also on my Articulate Thinker News Clips channel, which is tied to this channel. Go subscribe to that channel if you haven't already done so. Okay, now a bit of a shift here, because supporters of Donald Trump, certain ones to be precise, have to pick which side they're going to stand on here. Because once there is a sense of tension between Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump, well, who is going to be loyal to who? It's kind of hard to see both of them through. That's impossible to do. Only one of them can win. And when it comes to accruing votes, well, got to pick carefully. So Laura Loomer is an example of someone who is always looming large. And let me just click on this post from Max Nordahl on X. He said, "Crazy Loomer has psychotic episode at Benny Johnson for doing the exact same thing that Crazy Loomer did in one day prior. Or one day prior. Doesn't he know that he has to change his mind whenever Mr. Trump demands it?" So, like I said, people have to pick which side they're going to be on here. Those who have been very supportive of Donald Trump now have to condemn Vivek Ramaswamy. Otherwise, they themselves will be condemned. So here's the perfect example of that. Initially, Laura Loomer was saying things like this. Just the other day, she was saying, "Vivek Ramaswamy did invite me in. He even called out Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley for kicking me out," which I don't blame them for, considering how she is more of an instigator than an investigative journalist at this point. She says of Vivek Ramaswamy, "He was very nice to me, and I showed up to his event in my Trump hat. Vivek actually respects free speech and has not embraced the weaponization of government against President Trump, which I appreciate. And here she has a photo of herself with Vivek. Laura and Vivek. Two peas in a pod there. Doing the whole song and dance. So that was just the other day. And since Donald Trump has turned on Vivek Ramaswamy, she is now condemning Benny Johnson. If you don't know who that is, he's another social media figure, another content creator, supposed journalist who has been very supportive of Donald Trump, but is trying to walk and talk and chew bubblegum all at the same time here. He says in a post, "Catch me on the campaign trail with Vivek Ramaswamy." So he said that earlier today. And then she reposted his post saying, "So you're endorsing Vivek Ramaswamy? I mean, doesn't everyone see how obvious this influencer rollout with Vivek's campaign has been? So it's obvious, is it? Then why did you not pick up on it, Laura?" Now she's saying it's obvious that Vivek is a snake, when 5 minutes ago she was posing for pictures with him, just as these guys on the screen were. And this is just a corrupt version. But, yeah. Interesting how quick she was to shift her position. Laura Loomer, that is. She says, "Why didn't you campaign for Trump, Benny Johnson?" So Benny Johnson is getting condemned by his own. And I find it to be very amusing. I really do. If that's confusing, well, let me share my thoughts. And then we can wrap this up. I've gone on longer than I intended. I've been considering my shows to either be pods or podcasts, depending upon how long they last. I said that my last one would be a pod, but it went on longer than I expected it to. So I ended up putting it in my podcast playlist. As for this one, 30 minutes into this, definitely going to be a podcast. But I'm having a blast while it lasts. So I'll keep this going just a little bit longer. Here are my thoughts on the likes of Laura Loomer, taking a double L, as her name would suggest. I say, Laura Loomer represents everything that's wrong with MAGA on steroids. Being more of an instigator than an investigative journalist is merely a small sample of her obsessive-compulsive style of content creation. She's the type of person who will cause a scene just to have a scene to blame on someone else. And of course, she'll always find a way to blame whomever her predetermined narrative would have her blame. No matter what happens and how many times the plot twists, she'll always seemingly believe that she has maintained both the moral and political high ground, even if she has been personally invested in the twisting of the plot, in addition to the twisting of the opposition research knife. She isn't exactly press secretary material, or even Donald Trump knows, or shall I say, and even Donald Trump knows this. I got through almost this entire show without twisting my tongue, but it happened. Let me read that again. She isn't exactly press secretary material, and even Donald Trump knows this, yet he regularly reposts her content out of convenience. Because she is such an effective, though I would argue defective, political opposition researcher. And quote-unquote opposition researcher. Wait, did I say that twice? I meant investigative journalist. My goodness. My tongue is twisting all over the place at this point. He props her up, even if indirectly, and she serves his every purpose, as his purpose continues to change. Donald Trump, that is. When Vivek Ramaswamy also is propping up Trump, Loomer is willing to prop up Ramaswamy. When Ramaswamy steps on Trump's toes, Loomer and the other narrative-fitting acolytes walk back their support of the supposed Trump traitor, who is Ramaswamy in this case. Well, they don't walk it back. They run away from it, then scold anyone, such as Benny Johnson, who doesn't do the same. The likes of Loomer are the woke scolds of the right. Now, allow me to land this particular plane. Donald Trump isn't all bad. He isn't all bad at all. But in order to be considered loyal to him, one must pretend that he is all good, which comes in the never-ending form of defenses, deflections, and denials of reality. Trump isn't simply a candidate, not anymore. He has become the entire cause. You know, he and his near-subservient support system are the epitome of countercultural overcompensation. They counter a toxic culture so aggressively that they become their own toxic culture. They counter a toxic culture so aggressively that they become their own toxic culture. In defending their proclaimed purpose, they push back so aggressively that they become indistinguishable from the original opposing aggressors. As for me, I voted for Trump in 2020, hoping for a better candidate to vote for in the future. Well, the future is now, and the better candidate is here. I say Ron DeSantis is that better candidate, and boot memes have yet to convince me otherwise. If you know, you know. I might add that I would have no problem trading Trump for Ramaswamy if I felt that Ramaswamy was actually authentic. I just don't see it, so I'm not going to say it. In the meantime, Laura will continue to loom. Last portion of my podcast. Ron DeSantis is exactly right about the dynamic between Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy. And this is what he had to say in response to Donald Trump throwing Vivek Ramaswamy under the bus. Ignore that.
You know, I noticed that they that he threw Vivek. He threw him under the bus. You know, it's like I've never seen a candidate run for an office and basically campaign for another candidate in the same race before, and that's what's happened. But the minute he wasn't useful, you know, they dropped the hammer on it. So that's just kind of the way they are. But look, we're going to go forward as a party. We can go forward in a way that's focused on people's issues, that's focused on a great agenda for America, or we can go forward with Trump, which will be focused, the 2024 election, on legal issues, on criminal trials, on convictions, on all these things with January 6th. And that gives the Democrats a huge advantage going forward. And I don't think that we want to do that. Why would we want to give them any advantage?
All right. So that's that. And that's who I support. For now. Unless he gives me a reason not to. He hasn't done that. Everyone else has. Everyone else has given me a reason not to support them. Whether it's Vivek Ramaswamy or Donald Trump. Definitely Nikki Haley. I'm going to be honest with you. I am burning up right now. I have this heater on beneath my feet. But between that and me just overexerting myself here mentally, I feel like I'm about to have a heat stroke. Just being honest. I'm sitting here in a pool of my own sweat. I could have turned the heater off long ago, but I just wanted to keep on going until I got through this. Which I have. We've gotten through this together. Like birds of a feather. Again, thank you for being here. Keep in touch, keep in tune. New content is coming soon. That's all I have to say for now. I said a lot more than I intended to, but through and through, it was worth it. Peace. I think my hand is shaking. I don't know if you can tell, but my hand is shaking quite dramatically. Peace.